Welcome back. Yeah, during the break I was trying to make my elbow hurt less. My elbow is really hurting me today. So if during the program you notice me grimacing is la cara de dolor, it's my elbow. I have to bend my arm. When I bend my arm, it relieves the pain. How do you say? Alivia el dolor. It relieves the pain. And during the break, Juan Luis, the floor technician, offered me an aspirin. So would you like to take an aspirin? I said, no thanks. Would you like to take another type of painkiller? A painkiller, matador de dolor, literalmente. Painkiller es nuestra palabra en inglés para analgésico. A painkiller. A second is pain reliever, aliviador del dolor. Painkiller, pain reliever. And I said, no thanks, because really, for a pain in your elbow, if you take a pain reliever, does it affect your elbow? When I have headaches, I take pain relievers, but not when I have a pain in my elbow. So during the class, I may spend, fijaos cómo uso may, puede que pase el tiempo flexionando el brazo, bending my arm. If it distracts you, I'm sorry, but I need to produce a lot of programs for Aprender Inglés Tuve, and I don't have time to go to the doctor. I don't have time to look after myself. I don't even have time sometimes to change cameras, but I'm going to change cameras now. I don't have time to go to the doctor. I don't have time to take care of myself. No tengo tiempo ni de cuidarme. Tengo que cuidar la salud. I don't have time to look after myself. I don't have time to do anything. I don't have time for anything. Okay? Pero tarde o temprano, se me irá el dolor. Sooner or later, the pain will go away. The pain will go away. El dolor se irá. Okay? Sooner or later, eventually, the pain will go away. Eventually, sooner or later, antes o después, a la larga, tarde o temprano, se me irá el dolor. The pain will go away eventually, okay? To go away is irse. Irse en el sentido de desaparecer. To leave is irse en el sentido de marcharse. Y no es que este dolor se vaya a marchar, se va a ir. And if I continue bending, if I keep bending my arm, it will relieve the pain, and then you will notice that I'm in a better mood when I teach. Sometimes I'm in a bad mood. To be in a bad mood is estar de mal humor. Sometimes I'm in a bad mood when I teach because my elbow is killing me. God, this pain is killing me. But now it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt very much. It doesn't hurt very much. Fijaos, no estoy diciendo it doesn't hurt me, porque es incorrecto en inglés. En español sí es correctísimo. Me está doliendo, me duele. Siempre usáis. No decís normalmente duele. Se dice me duele el codo. En inglés no. Mi codo duele. Ello duele. It hurts. It hurts. My elbow hurts. And if I bend my arm, it hurts less. Bending my arm, el doblar el codo o el abrazo, bending, usando el gerundio, bending my arm relieves the pain. Okay? And during the last break, I bent my arm so much that now I feel a lot better. Now I'm not in a bad mood anymore. Now I'm ready to conquer the world. It's easier to conquer the world than to teach you English. I think if I had, if God came down from heaven and he said, Richard, you have two possible choices. You either or, either or, o esto o aquello, either this or that. Either You teach Spanish people in such a way that they finally learn English. You solve the English deficiency in Spain, or you conquer the world. You choose. Which one do you prefer to do? I will say to conquer the world. It's much easier to conquer the world than to teach Spain to speak English, to convert Spain into a bilingual or trilingual country. Okay, pero tarde o temprano lo conseguiré. Sooner or later, I will achieve it. Sooner or later, I will accomplish my tasks and my objectives. Sooner or later, you will learn English, even if I die in the effort. Okay? Tarde o temprano, eventually, sooner or later, sooner or later, sooner or later, antes o después. Te arrepentirás de haberlo hecho. Sooner or later, you will regret having done it. You'll regret having done it. Don't you remember? You don't study enough, and sooner or later, you will regret not having studied enough. You'll be sorry. You'll be sorry. Ya verás, lo lamentarás. You'll be sorry. You'll be. Casi suena a Quechua. You'll be. All right. You will. Contracción de you will. You'll be. You will be. Sorry. Te arrepentirás. You'll be sorry. You will. La contracción de you will suena a igual que tirar para acá. To pull. Tú tirarás la puerta y yo empujaré la puerta. I'll push the door and you'll pull the door. I'll push and you'll pull. And together, you're on one side of the door and I'm on the other side of the door. And the door is stuck, jammed. Está atascada la puerta. I'm on one side, you're on the other side. So, I'll push and you'll pull. Do you understand? Así se pronuncia la contracción de you will. Rima con tirar. You'll pull and I'll push. All right, tarde o temprano te arrepentirás. Sooner or later, you'll regret having done it. You will be sorry. Okay. Estuve en contacto con él ayer, por cierto. I was in touch with him yesterday. Just yesterday. If you had told me the day before that you needed to talk to him, I would have told him. Okay, because I was in touch with him yesterday. I was in touch with him. Estuve en contacto con él. I was in touch with him yesterday. In fact, we're in touch every week. Okay, we see each other in the mornings about once or twice a week. I drop by his house on the way to work to make sure that everything's okay. And yesterday, before going to work, I dropped by his house to make sure he was okay. I do it on a regular basis. Don't you understand? I do it on a regular basis. Lo hago de forma periódica, regular, on regular. You see, Manolo is 83 years old and he lives alone. And he doesn't have a cell phone. And he has a fixed telephone, but really, if something happens to him during the night, or if he falls down in the bathroom, he can't reach the telephone. No puede llegar al teléfono. And so, twice a week, I drop by his house on the way to work simply to have a coffee with him in the morning and to make sure he's okay. You know, he doesn't move around a lot. He can't walk very well, so he stays at home. And he doesn't have many friends. All of his relatives are dead, all of his family, so he's basically alone. So I drop by, paso por su casa, I drop by, I pass by, también se puede, I pass by his house, I drop by his house to check on him, to make sure he's okay, to make sure that he is okay. Quito that, hago las contracciones de rigor, to make sure he's okay, I drop by. All right, por lo tanto, estuve en contacto con él ayer. I was with him yesterday. I was in touch with him. yesterday. The next time is about next Monday. I'll drop by again And I'll tell him that you want to see him, that you want to talk to him. Yeah, you see, Manolo is 83, but he is still considered an eminence in soil composition. And so if you are a farmer, if you have a farm, una explotación agrícola, wheat, trigo, barley, cebada, rye, centeno, alfalfa, or any type of vegetables, Manolo is the person you need to talk to about fertilizer. You see, los fertilizantes. There are three kinds of fertilizers. There are three kinds of nutrients. Nutrientes, you say, or productos nutritivos that the soil, como oil, como aceite, oil con ese delante, es el suelo agrícola, la primera capa de suelo. The soil is very good in some areas of Spain and is not very good in other areas of Spain. The soil in the American Midwest is incredibly good, very fertile. Hay dos pronunciaciones para fértil. Fertile and fertile, ambos valen. Because you go to the Midwest of the United States and it's relatively flat. And every year it snows, and the snow is about 20 or 30 centimeters of snow. And it slowly melts. It slowly melts. Se funde, se va fundiendo, derritiendo. It slowly melts and penetrates into the soil for 50 million, I don't know, at least 50,000 years, because the Indians in North America were not farmers. They were hunters and gatherers, so they didn't use the soil. And so for 50,000 years, the snow melted every spring, penetrating the soil and created a black earth, tierra negra, that was very, very fertile. Okay? But regardless of the fertility, independientemente de su fertilidad, regardless of, or in spite of the fact that it's very fertile, farmers use fertilizer, abonos, fertilizantes, because the soil needs three different nutrients. Soil needs nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. Those are the three. Nitrogen, do you understand? Nitrógeno. Potassium, it's easy. De las potasas, potasio. And phosphorus. And so, they need those three nutrients, but not in the same balance necessarily. Some soils need more potassium, other soils need more nitrogen, and other soils need more phosphorus. And so Manolo, he's 83 years old. He's retired. He's not in very good health. I drop by his house twice a week, to check up on him, or to check on him. El up sobra aquí, pero se dice mucho para verificar que está bien el tío, para comprobar que está en buena, que no está muerto, que no sea, o no ha tenido un accidente en casa. I check on him, or I check up on him. Up sobra, pero se dice muchísimo. I check up on him to make sure, para asegurarme, to make sure that he's okay. Okay? And it's interesting because he's considered an eminence, una eminencia, in the field of soil nutrients. And he's the best person in the world for checking soil and measuring exactly what kind of nutrients or what blend, mezcla de productos nutritivos the soil needs. How much nitrogen, how much phosphorus, and how much potassium. Because if the soil needs phosphorus, you use phosphoric acid, ácido fosfórico. If it needs nitrogen, you put ammonium nitrate, nitratos de amoníaco, okay? And so that's different things. And those are inorganic fertilizers. They're not good for the ecosystem, okay? Because they're inorganic. Potassium comes from potash, minas de potasas. It's not organic, it's inorganic. Phosphoric acid comes from phosphatos. It comes from Morocco, for example, and that's inorganic. And ammonium is not good. It comes from urea and other things. It's not good, but it's very good for plants to grow quickly. But then the rain comes and it washes the fertilizer down to the rivers and they enter the ecosystem. And it's really not very positive. But on the other hand, pero en cambio, it makes the crops grow more quickly, in a more healthy way, and in a much more cost-efficient way, so we can buy tomatoes, bread, quality food at lower prices. So there's a balance here. One offsets the other. Okay, so there are advantages and disadvantages to using inorganic fertilizer. There are advantages and disadvantages to using organic fertilizer, okay? But Manolo is the man to talk to if you need to use inorganic fertilizer or organic, because he's a person who instantly or very quickly knows the composition of the soil, almost looking at it, feeling it, and smelling it. He can tell you, this needs more potassium, and you don't need to make a formal study, which is very expensive. You don't need to call the technical experts to come and study the soil in a laboratory. Un laboratorio, in English, American English, laboratory. In British English, laboratory. Okay, laboratory. And so you save the cost. And for a farmer, that's very important, to save the cost, ahorrar el coste, to save the cost of a laboratory study of the soil analysis. Análisis de suelos. So you call Manolo, okay? And Manolo, just touching it, smelling it, sometimes tasting it, looking at it, the composition says, and he's usually right. He's usually right. It's like the person who's looking for water. I don't remember what you call, strange word in Spanish, looking for water with a stick, and it goes down, water, there's water down here. And often they are right. Okay, often these people are right. And Manolo is 83 years old, and still people call him and pay him good money. Se dice en inglés, le pagan buen dinero, le pagan un buen dinero. They pay him good money to visit the soil, to visit the farm and to check the soil. And on these occasions, I often take him in my car, because Manolo is my wife's great uncle. Manolo is my wife's great uncle, el tío abuelo de mi mujer. He's my wife's great uncle, and he's a very funny man in spite of his age, but he's very frail. Frail means endeble. Frail, escrito. He's very frail. He's not very strong now. He lives alone. He's a widower. His wife died about 7 years ago. He's a widower. Una viuda es widow, como la viuda negra, the black widow. Y viudo es widower, E-R, añades a la palabra widow, y tienes viudo en masculino. He's a widower, no children. He has only one cousin. His brother has dead. He had only one brother who died, and his brother's wife died, and their daughter, a cousin, lives in Taiwan, very far from here. So really, he has nobody to look after him. No tiene quien le cuide. Es interesante en español esa forma de hablar. Manolo no tiene quien le cuide. It's a strange way of speaking for me. I remember the first time after I read Cien Años de Soledad, 100 Years of Solitude by Garcia Marquez, 35 years ago. Then I saw another novel called El Coronel no tiene quien le escriba. I said, that's a strange way of speaking Spanish. But now I know, Manolo no tiene quien le cuide. Manolo doesn't have anyone to look after him. Manolo doesn't have anyone to take care of him. So I do it. Okay, he's my wife's great uncle. And my wife is the daughter of the woman who lives in Taiwan. Okay, and so I drop by his house on the way to work, 2 or 3 times a week, just to check up on him to make sure he's okay. Because if something happens to Manolo in his house, nobody finds out until 2 months later or half a year later. Because he lives in a chalet, he lives in a house. He doesn't live in a flat or an apartment or a condominium. And so if something happens to him and nobody visits his house except me, he can be there for 6 months until somebody smells something strange or whatever. So I drop by, se paso por su casa. I drop by to have coffee with him in the morning for breakfast on Tuesdays and Fridays. And then from time to time, my wife calls him and says, Manolo, we're going to pick you up and take you to a restaurant, okay? And when we do that, we use a wheelchair, okay? My wife has a wheelchair, not for herself or for me. A wheelchair is a chair that you push, has wheels on it, and you push. And Manolo can walk, but he's very frail. He's not very strong. He's very weak. So he can walk. He walks with a cane. But when we pick him up, we always put him in a wheelchair because sometimes we need to walk more than 50 or 100 meters from the car to the restaurant, etc. And it's better this way because he's very slow when he walks. But when people need him, this is interesting, when people need him to check their soil in a farm, maybe 200 kilometers from here, he's ready to go. And he calls me and he says, Richard, listen, do you mind if I ask you a favor? Es así, ¿te importa que te pida un favor? Do you mind if I ask you a favor? I said, no, Manolo, what do you need? Listen, I got a telephone call from a farmer in Soria, and he needs a soil analysis, and I'd like to do it. And so usually it's Saturday morning, I go to Manolo's house, pick him up, and we drive 2 hours to Soria, and he spends the morning analyzing the soil on that farm. Sometimes the farmer pays, well, the farmer always pays him, but sometimes the farmer doesn't pay him much. But for Manolo, it doesn't matter. He's simply staying active. The day that Manolo doesn't have any soil to analyze is the day he will die because he will feel useless. Now he feels useful because about once a month, at least somebody calls him and needs his help. So he feels necessary. Y los granjeros, los agricultores, ¿qué harán si falto yo? ¿Qué habrá de los granjeros? So he feels that without him, everything will collapse, okay? And it's very important for Manolo to stay strong. Okay, so I drop by and have coffee with him twice a week. He's a good guy, I like him. All right, we only have a few minutes left, and we were talking about fertilizer and things. This is very interesting. But we were doing the expression to be in touch with. To be in touch with is estar en contacto con. I will be in touch with you. Pero se dice mucho más, I will get in touch with you. Eso es más proactivo. Me pondré en contacto contigo. Una vez que esté en contacto contigo, estaremos en contacto. Okay, I will get in touch with you. And once we are in touch, we will be in touch. Okay, es una perogrullada, but it's grammatically important for you to understand this. To get in touch with somebody, to get in contact with somebody, okay, we'll stay in touch. It's very common, for example, on the telephone, when you call somebody, you know, you say, bueno, yeah, sí, okay, vale, fine, okay, fine, yeah, okay, we'll stay in touch. Sigamos en contacto. Sí. Let's stay in touch, or seguiremos en contacto. We'll stay in touch, or we'll keep in touch. Yo personalmente digo más stay, I think. To keep in touch, to stay in touch is mantener el contacto, mantenerse en contacto. Yeah, we'll stay in touch. Okay, I'll keep in touch with you. Fine, great, bye. To keep in touch, to stay in touch. All right. And by the way, por cierto, I'm planning to stay in touch with you for a long time. No me vas a quitar encima, okay? You're not going to get rid of me. No te vas a deshacer de mí jamás. I'm going to be on top of you, encima de ti, for you to study English and to learn. I'll stay in touch. In fact, I'll more than stay in touch. I'll be on top of you night and day, making sure, asegurándome, making sure, más que con Manolo, making sure that your English improves every day. So with that, we finish another day, another day's work, another dollar. Me pagan $1 por día aquí. An honest day's work, an honest dollar. Así pronuncia dólar en inglés, dollar. So, see you again tomorrow. All right? Study, okay?